Hey everybody, Bill with American Liberty Fighters here. I was going to do a video kind of talking through some of the steps that my wife and I took, the planning, preparation, things like that of the property. I'll try to go through that. I may have talked about some of this before, but I figured I'd go a little bit more onto it. And I'm outside right now. Birds were out here a little while ago. It's a little overcast, kind of windy, so I'm hoping that the wind isn't going to be too much. I'll figure that out here when I try to edit, I guess. But I kind of took this, well, my wife and I took this kind of talking about where we wanted to be in a couple of years, what we were actually wanting to, our goal, I guess you could say, where we saw ourselves in the next few years. And that was about, that's been almost 4 years ago that we talked about, maybe 3.5, 4 years ago we started talking about that. And we started really talking about the way the world is these days, what's going on in the world, how our actual food industry has been, and what we could do ourselves to kind of change what we eat, how we eat, and to be more into taking control in what we actually put in our body, and the things that if we're going to get something to eat, like vegetables or fruits and the meats, that we would know what's in what we eat. And what we came up with really was that if we really wanted to be more involved in that, we would have to become more self-sufficient. Living in the city doesn't really give you that kind of opportunity, really. I mean, you can go so far, but you really can't go all the way. You can plant a garden. You can't build a greenhouse though without a permit and plans and a materials list. At least not in our city where we were at. They wanted to know everything down to the very nuts and bolts and how many we're going to take to make it. Were you going to use nails? Blah, blah, blah. So that was a real pain in the rear. So we went and we started just researching and praying and making lists. What is it that you want? If we were to move, what would you want? Where would you want to be? What would be your most ideal place to live? What would you have to have? What would you want to have? So we had our wants and needs lists, and my wife did most of the research, I guess. I didn't do as much research. She is she's the one that really thinks the most, I guess, in that way. I just, give me something to do and I go do it. I'm a thinker, but not in that way, I guess you could say. So we sat down with our list of wants and needs, and we would look at different locations. We actually were looking at anything above 5 acres, but between 5 and 10 acres was kind of what we were looking at. We weren't really looking at 40 acres or anything more than that. We actually got in a conversation with another YouTuber after some other stuff happened that I won't go into in this video. You can go back a couple months in videos and probably see it was a video response to some incident that happened, and you'll kind of know. But you'll know who the YouTuber was we were talking about. So But he started talking about what it took to be a homesteader back in the day, back before the turn of the century. And just a few days later, if not the next day, I can't really remember right off the top of my head, but I think it was either 1 or 2, maybe 3 days after talking to this YouTuber, my wife came across this property that we bought. 40 acres with a cabin, a garage workshop with a laundry workshop, a pond, and we actually found another pond on the property. So we have 2 ponds. Doesn't have a mountain view, which was the only downside. The cabin has a fireplace. It is a 2-story cabin, which we really weren't looking for. It still is tied to the grid electrically, so that worked out on my wife's side of it because she wants to have, you know, heat and air conditioning, heat in the winter, air conditioning in the summer. We do want to go with solar at some point down the line, as well as I'd really like to try the wind turbine power at some point, and maybe possibly just completely get off the grid. But right now, that's just not feasible for us. With the work that we do, the home business that my wife runs, we really can't not be tied to the grid because, well, the equipment we run, it sucks the electricity pretty good. So I don't know that solar power would work unless we really had a large solar system. Plus, I'm going to be getting into woodworking, and while I do like working with hand tools, having the capability of using an electric saw, a drill, things like that, do come in handy at times. Not all the time, but some of the time. So being on the grid isn't really that bad. We are on a well, so we have the capability of knowing what our water source, where it comes from, knowing that there won't be anything added into it from a city, county, state facility. Our pond, I'm hoping at some point we can stock it with fish, and then we can fish. We have a fish hatchery down a couple miles from us, and we are located within driving distance to places where I can go fishing. My wife doesn't necessarily really like wild game, deer, boar, things like that, and I honestly haven't eaten a lot of wild boar, but I do like deer meat, and I think if we prepared it, maybe she would get more into eating deer meat. So we'll have that, and at some point we can put maybe a cow or 2 on our property. We have enough acreage, and we definitely are going to have chickens. I'm contemplating heavily on guineas. I don't like the kind of noise those things make, so I'll have to see about that. But we were thinking, you know, to get, I guess, back, I tend to go off on tangents, so I apologize. I try not to, but sometimes it just happens. Can't help it. So to get back to it, though, we were really looking for something smaller, but this property coming up the way it did right after talking to this other person was just too much of a coincidence to really pass up. So my wife pointed it out to me, and I looked at everything. I thought it was really nice looking. We asked some more questions. We got some different answers. Pardon me. I didn't want to make a decision without actually going and walking on the property and seeing how it would feel to be there. I'm kind of I'm not as much of a total visual person. I like to feel more than just see before I make a decision. So we had looked at, I don't know even how many properties at that point. We had gone up to Fort Smith, Arkansas. We were looking in Tennessee. We were looking in Kentucky. We actually drove up to Ohio, visited John from Jano Zero. We visited him. There was some property up there. He was like, hey, you know, y'all can buy that. But it was uphill. And even though it was next to an awesome guy who has a lot of knowledge about living a self-sustainable life, I just couldn't see doing that, because that was one of our things. We had to have usable land for gardening and other applications that we were thinking of doing. So move forward a few months. We've looked at this property. We've contacted the agent. We made an appointment to go look at the property. We drive up to Arkansas, and I knew as soon as I got on the property, which the real estate agent wasn't real keen on taking us there. I mean, it is off the beaten path. It's, if you drive slow so you don't bounce everybody all over the place, it takes a good 30-45 minutes to get to the property. It's maybe 10 miles off of a main road. And we're at the very end of the rural route road. So we're at the end, what they call the end of the world. There's a couple of people that have been out there. They know what I'm saying when I say that. But we finally got the real estate agent to understand. I basically told the guy, listen, I drove all the way from Texas. I want to see this property. This is the only property I care about. That's the property I want to go see. So as long as I see that, I really don't care. We went to the property, got out of the truck. I walked around a little bit. I stood there, closed my eyes, took a deep breath. And I knew right then that this was where I wanted to be. It was quiet, peaceful. It felt incredibly good to be there. So at every point we prayed about it, we waited, we took our time, so that if we were moving on our own desires and not what the will of God would be for us, that we would have time for God to say, this ain't going to work for you. This isn't what I have in store for you. And at no point has that happened. In fact, when we initially put in the bid, the seller came back with a no. We gave a final bid offer that the seller declined as well. The real estate agent, being the genius that he was or is, didn't go and find out from the seller what their bottom line would be, or if they would be willing to come back with some other offer. He just took that as a final offer. It took 2 weeks. The sellers came back, and they offered us, if we would take the property as is, they offered to sell us the 40 acres, fully fenced in, with a cabin, 2 outbuildings, and a pole barn, with pasture area already fenced out. They offered all this for $120,000. The house we had here in Texas that we sold, the profit off of that house was roughly just a little bit over $120,000. So, again, it was a no-brainer. That kind of told us both. That's a sign that this is what we're supposed to do. We took a couple days, we thought about it, we took the offer. And it's taking us a little longer than I would want to get out there. I think it's taking longer than my wife would want to get out there. We've both had to sacrifice quite a bit to do this. If anybody else has done this, made this move from city life to country life, not being completely off-grid, but being somewhat off-grid, going more self-sustainable living, far enough out where you're going to have to give up your job that you have and find another stream of income, find another way to do the things you want to do, to live the life you want to live. You know what I'm talking about. For those of you that are contemplating this, I would say that if you're a believer, pray and listen, be patient, think it through, make a plan, make a list. Don't settle for just anything, and it should work out. If you're not quite a believer, I would say pray, listen, make a plan, don't settle for anything less, be patient, and it should work out. We are still on schedule to be out on our property, living on the homestead, by the 1st of May. We're hopeful to go out. We don't think we're going to make it this week, coming up April 1st weekend. The weather's supposed to be bad out there. I'm not going to get a whole lot of time to work on the outside area. And my plan of loading everything in a U-Haul and cruising on up there and unloading it all probably won't work if it's raining all weekend and all week. Living out where we're going to be living, the roads are going to be kind of washed out, a little more than what they were the last time we went out. So if we don't go this weekend, I'm hoping that we can go the weekend of April 8th. I will be taking time off to do that, and I'm hoping to have the fence done, and I won't even have all my fencing here before the 1st of April, the way things are going. All I've got is what I was able to go pick up the other day. I don't have the actual fencing and the stretcher for the fencing. I had to order those in. And they're probably not going to be here till the 3rd, so probably the weekend of the 8th will work out better for us. That way I can load everything, get rid of the storage unit, have everything up there, change out the front door lock to the cabin, lock up the garage, and change the locks on the laundry workshop, and have everything kind of staged and set up in those areas, and then it'll be easier for us to unpack and get settled in come May 1st. We still have everything here that we've got to pack and move up there as well, which I think the weekend that we do go up there and load everything up, we're going to take everything here that we don't really need. We've kind of stuck everything in little nooks and crannies all over the place here. We probably could downsize a little more, but if you've tried to downsize before, you already know how difficult it is, because you have something you think you may need, but you're not sure. As soon as you get rid of it, there's when you need it. So we both kind of fall into the category of, I don't want to get rid of it until I know I don't need it, and I'll never know that I don't need it. Not necessarily a hoarder, but you know what I mean. So I guess if our plans change and we do go up next weekend, I'll let everybody know. If not, I'm hopeful that I'll have the drone back. I'll be able to do some aerial footage, at least where we're at here, and maybe if nothing else, I can make one trip up there and just change the locks or something, and check my trail cam, see if I have any more wildlife. Now that I've moved it a little further out from where it was, I might get a clearer vision of the wildlife. And since they do know that we're up there and we've made more trips up there, maybe I won't see so many vehicles going in and out of the property. That's kind of the one thing that I'm most worried about, is everybody just showing up out there. But anyhow, I'm not sure if I finished my conversation that I was going to finish. This video is a really long video. I apologize for that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this video short, or at least end it now. I'll edit it, and if I didn't finish what I started to talk about, then I guess tomorrow I'll have something to go into again. Again, thank you for listening to this video. If you've listened to the entirety of the video, I appreciate that. I appreciate every view I get. I appreciate every comment and every suggestion that you send. I try to answer all of them. I do what I can. I'm just learning still. I've been on YouTube for a while. I have grown my channel kind of slowly and done things slowly on purpose so I would not overwhelm myself or my wife, because she's the marketing genius. She's the one that knows the ins and outs of everything that we deal with on this stuff. So I am the technical guy. I can work on a phone system like nobody's business, but internet stuff, I don't know. When it comes to YouTube and things like that, I'm just learning it. So anyhow, I appreciate everybody listening. And until tomorrow, hope you have a great evening.